So we got to make sure that we get everything scraped off. Anything that could come down and get into our seam. All of these high spots. We need to get those off. If we're doing this right, we shouldn't have a whole lot of sanding until the very end. And so again, all we got to do is to make sure that we get anything off of here that might come out and get into our seam. So when we do our first coat, we want to have that nice even edge where our knife is running up against the corner and running against the wall, so we have a nice even width. When we do our second coat, it's going to be the same way. This is going to be wet down a little bit more than the first one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to kind of run down at that angle across. I'm putting it on thick, just like if I was putting stain on a project, right? I'm not going to sit and kind of feather it in and spend a lot of time. I'm just going to get it on the wall. And then as I run down, I can begin to kind of even that out. Remember, if I have my blade down, I'm spreading. If I have my blade up, I'm taking it off. For right now, I just want to spread it out. If it starts to roll around, I'm just going to stick it back on the wall so I don't lose it. And then what you guys should end up with, when it's all said and done, is something that is of equal width, just like when you did your second coat. Notice I'm not being real careful here. I'm just trying to get it on the wall. Now, it should be pretty easy because we're just going to let the left side run right on the corner and the right side is going to run right on the wall. What I'm seeing a lot of is this, where people run down and they got this ridge here. You shouldn't see a ridge on that right side if you're pressing against the wall on the right side and you're letting the left side run right on that corner. It should be pretty easy because you're just running down each edge, okay? And when you get done, you should end up with something that is feathered in. You see how you can see through that right there? Yep. That's because that's so thin. It's feathered in right there. And so when we come back and we do our skim coat, we're not going to have to really sand on this. We're going to run across it. If there's any high ridges, we'll knock them off. But that's essentially what you want. If you end up with something that, instead of looking like that, it looks like this, and you got a ridge along the side, then that's a problem. You don't want that. We filled this with our 6-inch knife, and when it dried, it shrank, right? So now if I put my knife up there, I can see light in between. So when I do my second coat over my tapered edge, all I'm gonna do is spread the mud, okay? And then I'm just gonna pull the majority of it off. I'm pushing nice and tight. It's running on both sides of the drywall, and it's just filling that in. So when you get done, you shouldn't see, it should be very thin. You should be able to see through it at the edge, and you shouldn't see any ridges. If you put it on and you got something that looks like that, that's not correct. Okay, that's too much. I'm just going to show you what these butt joints will look like now. So remember, on a butt joint, you don't have that little tapered area for the tape to sit down inside and get covered. It's sticking further off the wall, and so you have to taper it a long distance in order to not be able to see. You don't want to be looking at a wall and see this big mound, right? So you got to taper it really wide. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our knife, we're going to throw it on, and we're going to let it run right down the edge of the seam. And I'm just going to let the right side, I'm going to flex that a little bit so I can pull some out off the bottom. I'm going to let the right side run against the wall. The left side runs right on top of the seam. And if we did that right, we should have filled in everything. We'll get rid of this because it's very thin down there anyways. If we did that right, we should have a nice smooth seam that goes down to, again, where you can see through it, and it's sitting up on top here, right? Now when I do this top here, I'm going to go a full blade width again. It's just like when you're putting your stain on. You're going to put it on thicker than you think you need it. Just get it spread around And then we come back, just like with our stain on our project, and we take off all the excess and see how it lays in there real nice. If I want to run across the top to take some of that off of that seam, I can. But now, again, the bottom of my blade is right in the center of that initial first coat seam, and you end up with something that is a nice taper and goes from here to here, right? So I could leave that, but I know if I run over one more time, it'll probably smooth it out a little bit more. So see, I got a little smoother. I still got a little bit of this ridge is pretty high right there. That's why you're seeing that. And when that dries, that'll probably shrink. But overall, that's what you're looking for. Something that tapers up to the seam and back down to the wall.